Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky.
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Named the dog Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in paints.
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is my man who loves a good list that ruins things. It's Frank. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you, buddy?
I am also pretty good. Pretty good, to quote you. Sometimes you say that.
I do.
Yeah, Frank, what are you doing today? What are you drinking today? What are your general appetites for life today? You know, the usual questions.
Wow. Yeah, that got heady.
Heady,
well,
like a
I'm
beer?
Enjoying. Yeah, like a bad pour.
Yeah.
I am having a Sidekick Helles lager from my local brewery, Stoneface Brewing Company, here in New Hampshire.
Nice. I saw a thing today, like a British person lists every state, and he's like, the thing that this makes this state famous, and New Hampshire's was New Hampshire's famous for not being anything like the other Hampshire.
Well, that's funny.
Yeah. I'd say that's probably true, actually.
Probably. If I knew anything about the other Hampshire, I would probably agree.
Absolutely.
What are you drinking?
Frank, I am drinking a Sam Adams Cold Snap, which is ironic because we've had exactly one cold snap, and it is not right now. I can promise you that.
But it was plenty cold.
It was
cold enough for the whole winter.
cold. I did not have cold snap when it was that plenty cold. But you know what? It's okay. It's been a very mild winter here in New England, which I will probably say is probably going to be more par for the course or more normal than of our youths. But you know, what are you going to do about it? Recycle. That's what, Frank. Anyway, let's recycle some jokes and some content to save the planet here.
Nice.
Anytime we have to use an old episode, that should be the tag. Like, we're saving the planet by recycling this episode.
We're doing our part. Why don't you?
Why don't you listen to this episode you already listened to?
Right.
Anyway, Frank, we're here to talk about Vin Diesel's giant guns, and by that I mean his arms, in this list from Screen Rant, which is the 15 things that instantly ruin a movie, according to Reddit users.
And I tell you,
yeah,
when you so this is like a graphic posted by Screen Rant, and it shows Vin Diesel in it, even though it has nothing really specifically to do with Vin Diesel. But all I could see at first was 15 things that instantly ruin a movie, and I was like, is Vin Diesel one of the things that instantly ruins a movie?
Right? Like, why is he on there? Although I guess his is supposed to be number 5, which we will get to as we go down the list.
Sure.
So, but at first I was like, why is he there? Like, I guess he's hard to work with, but jeez, like, that's tough. Miles Teller isn't on this list at all. Like, but
he
Vin
could
Diesel
be all
is
15
here.
of the things on this list.
No, probably not. I've come around to Miles Teller just because of The Offer, which I didn't want to. I didn't want to kill him in. I found him quite good, and Top Gun Maverick, which I also found him quite good and non-punchable. And so
all I have to say is Fantastic.
Yeah, well, you know what? That movie doesn't exist anymore, probably because of reasons that I can't think of, like, I don't know, The Dark Times, The Empire, whatever. Like, that movie's...
It shouldn't exist, so that's fine by me.
He didn't... I was going to say he didn't make it, but I mean, he was in it. But you know what? If I got to rag on him, I also have to rag on Toby Kebbell, who's great. I would assume, unless something came out in the news before we recorded this after we recorded this podcast. Then he's not great, as the disclaimer goes. They're great unless something happened, then they're not great, apparently. Anyway, 15 things that instantly ruin a movie, Frank, according to Reddit users.
Should we start at number 15 and count down?
Yeah, if you want to do that, we can start at number 15. Number 15, falling in love too fast. I can't help falling in love too fast. When I first read that, I was like, wow, that's harsh. And then I thought about it, and I said, no, that does annoy me, actually.
It is annoying.
Yeah. You know what it is? It didn't annoy me before I was, like, I actually fell in love, and I got married, and, and then you, work at love and relationships and all that stuff. But, but as a kid, or, I guess, or as a non-mature adult, falling in love too fast didn't bother me because I didn't have the weight of experience for it to not bother me.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It didn't bother you. Why would it bother you if you didn't have anything to compare? You didn't have reality to compare the stories to, right?
Right. Does it bother you falling in love too fast?
Yeah, it certainly can. I would say I think about I don't know why the first thing that comes to my mind is the Zack Snyder Watchmen film, where I just sort of feel like that happens kind of quickly between Silk Spectre 2 and
Night Owl. Yeah.
Night Owl Man.
Owlman is Earth 3 Batman villain. Yeah.
That was kind of a tongue in cheek.
Say it again. I'll laugh.
Owl Nightman.
Yeah.
The Dark Owl.
Nice.
The Dark Owl Detective. That felt like it just felt. I mean, and it's like, how are you going to condense a 12-issue maxi series into a 2.5-hour movie? Like, obviously, it had to be quick. But it's something you notice, right? You clock it, and so I that definitely is something that that can kind of take you out of a movie. Number 14.
Mm-hmm.
Breaking up because of misunderstandings, that actually really bothers me.
Oh, really? Because that doesn't bother me at all.
Oh, man. In a movie where it's just like a simple conversation or not even it's like continuing that conversation, like asking one more question. Like, what do you mean by that? Or whatever. Like,
sure.
So, when it's just the dialogue doesn't really ring true because, like, the point of the scene is for them to misunderstand or whatever. That kind of stuff really just like, that's not how it would actually go.
Okay, so yes and no. So, like, if it's not constructed well, I'd say that goes for, like, all of these things.
Well,
that's sure. But, like, the crux of a conflict, any conflict, is misunderstanding, right? I don't understand your point of view, your worldview. So if everybody just understands, there is no conflict.
I'm talking about, and I take this number 14 on the list to mean when people break up because
like the ex-girlfriend comes over and it looks like they were making out, but he goes, no, like, you're a jerk, and
that
then, like,
kind of stuff where
sure.
It's like, come on, if the conversation had gone on for 30 more seconds, this would have been cleared up.
Sure.
But the movie required them to not.
Yeah, well, they had to play the Five for Fighting song, the sad Five for Fighting song or whatever.
There you go.
Like, they kicked the can walking down the street.
Yes.
So, right. I'm sure I've done this on the show before, but, like, I've gone through my made-up romantic comedy before. Have I?
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember it. I remember talking about You've Got Mail and then you talking about your
Orange, You Glad We Met. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my famous romantic comedy, Orange, You Glad We Met. Yeah. But, like, that breaking up because of a misunderstanding is in that movie because that's part of the. It doesn't bother me. I guess it depends on the genre because, like, if I'm watching a romantic comedy, I know that's just part of the makeup of the genre. So I expect that to happen. Like, I expect the superhero to question their ability to save people or whatever, or for them to, in fact, save the day. Like, I expect that to happen as part of the genre. I expect there to be a simple miscommunication that would not actually happen in real life unless you based your entire life off of romantic comedies.
Sure.
Sure. So but I can understand why it bothers people. 13 is a totally different direction. Bad sound design, which I don't think this bothers me. Truthfully,
I'm trying to think of an example where it was bad enough to bother me.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard forgettable sound design.
Sure.
It's not on here, so it's not really sound design. It's more sound mixing. But like, I can't stand when like the music is louder than the dialogue. Like, and it's not for a dramatic effect. Like, if I can't hear the characters talking to one another, that actually bothers me.
Yep, I agree with that.
That's not really sound design, though.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Design is like the sound, just like the laser being dumb and taking me out of the movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of an example of where that took me out of the film. But I agree that things that are bad are bad. Number 12, bad exposition. This can. They're calling it bad exposition. I would say like very obvious exposition. You know, when a conversation, as you know, Bob, this laser is constructed entirely out of dilithium crystal. You know, when it's very, very like here is the conflict, here is the plot, here is the thing that we need to accomplish. In the by the end of the movie, that can ruin a movie and make it sort of like, okay, this is very clumsily written.
I don't necessarily mind bad exposition, depending on obviously the movie. That, like, you know, some movies you just expect it to be clumsy or whatever. What I don't like is when the exposition doesn't end up lining with character motivations or character things. So this was just pointed out. This was just pointed out to me in Black Adam by my friend Bobby, where they like the whole Hawkman makes this huge point about like heroes don't kill people, and like earlier in the movie, or I think it was earlier in the movie, Dr. Fate is like goes to Black Adam as like surrender or die. And you're like what are you talking about? Like, so like those things don't match up with one another, and like that bothers me. Like, that's your movie is 90 minutes long or whatever. Like, surely out of all the times that you watched this in the editing room, on the set, read the script, whatever, no one connect those dots together and see, and then like, and it didn't reveal anything particular about the characters, so it wasn't important to the plot. So it was that. That frustrates me so entirely. Number 11, does shaky cam bother you? When the camera shakes and all around, blah, blah, blah.
It doesn't. I don't think it bothers me nearly as much as it bothers other people. I have heard people complain about this in action films, and one that comes to mind is Man of Steel. That's not one of the things that Man of Steel that bothers me at all.
No.
I wouldn't say that I even really noticed it until it was pointed out to me.
Sure. Yeah, I think it depends on how shaky you're talking. Like, if it's like found footage and I'm watching the Blair Witch Project or Cloverfield or something like that, I'm like,
yeah, you expect it there.
Yeah, and like it like gets you after a while, but like that's kind of the point of it. Like, but like shaky cam all the time can just be like, okay, just keep it still for a little while. I can understand. It doesn't really ruin the movie for me.
I mean, even in like the 2009 Star Trek, there's a lot of shaky cam. Again, didn't notice it till it was pointed out to me.
Yeah.
Doesn't really faze me. I'm also not one for, I don't really struggle with like motion sickness or anything, so it wouldn't bother me.
Yeah, I do get motion sick, but it doesn't really bother me that way. And truthfully, the point of a good shaky cam is for you to feel like you're in on the action.
Yeah.
Or that you're like intimate, like, and you're like filming it yourself, like on your phone or the camcorder or whatever. So like a good shaky cam hides the flaws, but also makes you feel like you're in it. So I think when I like it more than I dislike it, I think.
Yeah. I think for me, it fades into the, like a good score. It sort of just fades into the background. It just gives me the the feelings that I'm supposed to feel of like feeling like I'm there or feeling, the tension of what's happening, but I don't really notice what's making me feel that way. And that way it's doing its job.
Totally. Number 10, background fighters. I truthfully don't know what this means exactly, apart from bad fight choreography.
I think that's what they mean. Yeah, like background actors who are doing bad fight choreography. I don't notice good fight choreography. I don't know anything about martial arts. I don't know. It's not an art form that I am sufficiently versed in to really know the difference between good and bad. And I am embarrassed to admit that, but I will freely admit that.
No, I mean, it means you enjoy more things, so it's not a terrible thing. I don't think bad background fighting bothers me because it normally, like, it is in the background. You're not really supposed to focus on it. So if it's just okay, like, I'm not looking for it anyway. But bad fight choreography does bother me. Like, there's the scene in The Dark Knight Rises, where Batman is saving John Blake, like in the crumbly bridge section and snowing out and stuff like that. You can like see a dude waiting his turn to attack Batman.
You have said this before, yes.
Yeah. And so like that bothers me because like that's the main action that I'm supposed to be watching.
Right, it's not background.
No, it's not. And like he's obviously waiting his turn. And so, like, that I don't love. But it doesn't ruin a movie for me. Very few things actually ruin a movie for me. Maybe it will by the time we get to number 1, though. Who's to say?
Maybe. Number 9 is product placement. I definitely notice product placement more than I used to. I think it's also getting more blatant in films than it used to be.
Sure.
It used to just be like, here's an Apple computer with the Apple logo on it. But now it's like, here's the superhero going through a billboard that says Walmart on it.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, like, doesn't like Superman fly through the Coca-Cola sign in 1980 or whatever,
absolutely.
So
the people.
Yeah, right, exactly. The people on the American Expressway on the Peter Pan bus. Like, like that's then and now, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, the product placement doesn't really bother me because, like, if it gets too big of a thing, then the movie starts to make fun of it, and so and like product placement, like I find it weird. So to me, it's weirder when like somebody goes to a bar and they're like, "Give me a beer."
Yes.
Which one, sir? This is a bar.
It's not how it works.
Do you want it on tap? Do you want a bottle? Do you want imported? Do you want local? Like, what do you want? An IPA? Do you want a stout? Do you want a lager? Like, give me a beer.
It's not like water. You know, you don't just say like, "Can I have a glass of water?"
Right. So I think the lack of product placement in certain things is actually more annoying than the product placement itself. If someone's like, give me a Coke, I'm like, because you exist in the real or regular world where Coca-Cola exists. Like, gotcha. That's better to me.
Yeah. It's not always bad either. Like in Back to the Future Part 2, when Marty says, "Give me a Pepsi free," like that's clever. That's funny. Like, hey, if you want a Pepsi, you're going to pay for it. Like, that's funny, and that's integrated well, and it doesn't ruin the movie in the least.
No, that's actually a good example of it being used well. That's a good one. Number 8 is surviving explosions. I feel like this is really this is movie or character dependent. So, like, if Wolverine survives an explosion, I'm like, yeah, right on, because he's freaking Wolverine. Okay.
I think what they're talking about is a human, being overpowered or whatever.
Sure. Sophie from Sophie's Choice survives an explosion, and I'm like, well, does she?
Well.
Yeah. Was there an explosion in that movie? I don't know. I don't know why that's the one that came into my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're talking more about like an action hero.
Sure.
Who can, run through explosions and nothing, or like
James Bond. Truthfully, that doesn't really bother me because like none of all action is like hyper stylized. The fighting, like nobody fights like people do in action movies. Like the amount of time it takes you to spin around and do the thing. I'll never forget my friend Jessica in elementary and middle school. We were talking when we were kids, like when Phantom Menace had just come out. It's like 1999 or whatever, and we're talking about Qui-Gon's death. Spoilers. And
Lucasfilm spoiled it way before you
you're
did.
right. Yeah. Stupid CD track that ruins a movie. Like, yeah. That's number one. But she had said, he probably would have survived if he wasn't spinning around so much, and that has stayed with me since I was a kid. Like, because it's a tiny bit true. If you'd stopped spinning around, maybe you wouldn't be surprised by what was like behind you by the time your eyes came back to the fight. And so, like, I don't care if like people survive explosions most of the time or not. If it's like supposed to be real, like really realistic. Like if I'm watching, give me a really realistic movie, Frank. Like really down punch gut realism. Like, I don't know. This is so weird. It's a weird choice. But if I'm watching Doubt, like, and like this nun walks into the convent or whatever, and it explodes, and she just walks out, or is like, I just happen to be in a barrel, I'd be like, all right, okay, yeah. Or
Sure.
Frank, even more. Does it depend on the type of explosion? Because are you okay with Indiana Jones like surviving a nuclear explosion or an atomic bomb?
That's a perfect example. That's a perfect example. The nuking the fridge thing is a perfect example of like, guys, you took it too far. I think that is like jumping the shark. That can be jumping the shark where it's like, guys, come on. At what point is this getting ridiculous? Like, like yes, the whole thing is fantastical. The whole so much of what he does, is exaggerated. But like at a certain point, it's like, he got in the fridge and that he survived a nuclear. Well, really? Okay, I guess. That's the kind of stuff I feel like that. To me, that can maybe not completely ruin a movie, but definitely take me out of it and make me be like, seriously, you want me to suspend disbelief to this degree? Okay,
yeah,
but like really,
my suspension only goes so far. There's only so much tension there.
Yeah.
Number 7, The Uncanny Valley. Does it really?
Yes.
Yeah, it does. It really
can.
Yeah.
Rogue One.
Yep. Oh, sure.
I love that movie. But and we had this conversation when the movie came out that the Peter Cushing stuff was just uncanny enough for me where it was like, oh, I can tell, like I can see it. It's really good. It's really close, but it's just not quite there. And I remember you saying at the time that you knew people who didn't know that he had passed.
Yep.
And didn't even faze them. So, like, there's definitely some of that of, like, knowing.
You knew he was not alive.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But then, like, Carrie Fisher at the end of the movie, that I thought was really not very good.
No, that one bothered me way more than Peter Cushing's Grand Moff Tarkin.
It does bother me way more. It does, yes.
Yeah. I truthfully, I think I go in a different direction, and I think of, like, the Polar Express, where I'm like, I know none of it's real. Like, it doesn't even look real, but it's still weird and creepy.
It's creepy.
Yeah, and Uncanny Valley for me would be way higher on the list, because like I don't like the Polar Express. I think almost like because of the the creepiness of it, and so and not all of them are like I think like Christmas Carol like does it a little bit better. It doesn't like focus on their eyes the same way.
Sure.
Anyway, it's no good. Number 6 is Smart Kids. Smart Kids in a Story. Doesn't bother me at all. I actually kind of like it when there's a kid that's really smart. I know it's not always potentially hyper, like it's not really realistic, but like I was a big fan of Smart Guy growing up.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
And so I guess like what is the level of smart kid, and where does that where do you consider where does it drop off?
Where do you feel? I mean, can you see a scenario where like the kid is too smart to be plausible?
Sure, yeah, but it depends on what I'm watching at the same time. So like Game of Thrones, there's I can't remember the character's name. Oh my gosh. She's like the ruler, and she's really smart. She's the girl that's on The Last of Us right now, and I cannot remember her character's name.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
At all.
I knew she was from Game of Thrones, yeah.
Yeah, and she was great, and she was like such a crowd pleaser, and I loved how smart she was. But I was also watching a show about dragons and ice zombies and stuff. So like, I don't care if there's a smart kid.
Well, yeah, I think genre always matters, right? Because it's the kind of thing of like, okay, yeah, if I can suspend disbelief enough to believe a man can fly, then I can believe that people don't recognize him with glasses on. Like, the genre matters. But, there are cases where if it's supposed to be somewhat realistic and a kid is too smart to be believable, or people are surviving explosions or whatever, it can be sort of like, all right. Like, again, you're stretching my ability to suspend disbelief.
Is there a movie that you're thinking of, or a show where you're like, that kid's too smart?
I can't think of a specific, but when I see this, I'm like, this is not one that, if you asked me to name 15 things, this would not have come to me unprompted.
Mm-mm.
But when you say it, I'm like, all right, I can see how someone could find that annoying. There's lots of reasons to dislike Short Round.
Sure, but he's not super smart. He's just a kid.
He's not, I guess. Yeah, I am struggling to think of a specific example. Like I said, this wouldn't have come up for me at all. But I guess if someone finds it annoying, I can see it.
Sure. Number 5 is where the Vin Diesel picture comes in. I think protagonist invincibility. So I'd assume this is a Fast and the Furious reference where they just can like do anything.
Yeah.
Where they can,
this kind of goes along with surviving explosions.
Yeah.
Like it's.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't. Again, it's genre dependent because like I know James Bond is going to survive. I know Spider-Man's going to be okay. Even if like he blips out of existence for 5 years, I know Spider-Man's coming back. Like that's part of the genre. You can specifically talk about genre here because this doesn't exist in like just realistic fiction, protagonist invincibility. So I feel like you just kind of know what you're getting into with some things. Like, and if they're the hero, so if they're the protagonist, yeah, they're kind of invincible.
Yeah, this is one that I don't really find. I agree with you on this. That like. This is a criticism that's leveled against superheroes a lot. It's definitely leveled against my beloved Superman a lot. That like, well, it's boring because he's going to always survive. And it's like, does that make it boring? Does that really make it boring for like? I don't know. Like,
I guess if you're only really interested in the end game and like you don't care about character arcs or development or anything that makes stories interesting besides explosions, but then like if that's what you're actually interested in, then like you should be aware that your character's invincible. Like, I don't know. Luke Skywalker takes out one of the two most feared people in the galaxy by swinging wildly like a blind man with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
And like, I'm sorry, like, is that not like but that is not interesting, like in its own way. So that doesn't bother me. Whatever. I know that's what you're walking into most protagonists being invincible, and when they're not, wow, what a nice surprise. But
True.
like, whatever.
Yeah, but it's like you're watching a movie with James Bond's name on it. He's probably going to make it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a great point. Their name is freaking in the title. They're probably going to make it. And if they don't, they're probably coming back.
Right.
James
Bond will return.
Correct. Number 4 is passwords. This doesn't ruin a movie for me, but I do find password descriptions funny.
Yeah. And when people are guessing passwords, it's like, try his birthday. Try, whatever. His mother's maiden name, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Peggy. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I always go to Batman and Robin. That's always my, that's the
exactly. That when it's like, really?
But you know what? Now our passwords are like, like if you're like good at password, you should be good at password encryption. It's like a bunch of random letters and symbols and stuff, and you just have to remember what they are. Like, it can't always be like Lantern 81. But even that, like, let's say mine was Lantern 81, which I truthfully...
completely theoretically, definitely not your Gmail password right now.
It's definitely not, but I think it was my email password in high school. It was like one of the auto-generated ones. It was definitely Lantern something. I don't know what the numbers were. Like, why would you ever guess that? So even then, like, that's so random. Like, you could...
Why would you ever guess that?
You could look around my office for hours and, and unless you, like, maybe happen to be like, well, there's some Green Lantern books on the shelf, and then like just do a random combination of numbers and maybe land on it.
Lantern 01, Lantern 02, Lantern
right?
Zero.
Exactly. So yeah, passwords don't bother me. It's because it's more troublesome when like people get it in 3 tries. Like yeah, that's more annoying. Number 3 is
Martha.
Right, it's not password, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Number 3 is miscasting. This can absolutely take me out of a movie, especially for genre movies. Like non-genre movies, it could be like, well, this person wasn't as good as you had hoped or whatever. But like, if I don't think of a weird example. If they cast like, oh man, now I can't think of a weird example. I don't know, Vin Diesel as, I don't know, Alfred Pennyworth. I'd be like, what a weird freaking choice that was, and I can't get behind it. So miscasting can definitely ruin a movie for sure.
Sure. Yeah. Or, if you just completely pulling this out of thin air, but if you cast Miles Teller as Reed Richards, maybe that might be.
Maybe that's bad casting on that part.
Maybe that's not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can get behind that. Number 2 is villain's motives, which is truthfully I feel like really high on the list. Like,
yeah, I feel like it's too high on the list, and I feel like it. I could agree with it if it was like villains monologuing or something, but just villains villains having motives, or like you don't like the villains' motives like that. I feel like is too high on the list.
What I can't feel is so the villains. A villain's motive maybe won't ruin a movie for me, but a undecipherable motive that might ruin it for me. Like totally. What is your objective exactly? Like, why are you there? What are you doing? Yeah, even that though. At least I know that's what the motive is. Like, they want to rule the world. Okay, I can get behind that. But how are you planning on doing that? Or like, I don't know. I guess a generic motive can ruin it.
A generic motive or a motive that doesn't really like, okay, you want to rule the world, so that's why you built this giant laser. Like if the thing doesn't really connect.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I don't know. Like I'm going to go back to my punching bag of Black Adam. Where like there was Intergang, and they controlled Kahndaq because they were doing a thing, and they were bringing the guy back, and then Sabak back probably. He controlled Intergang, but then like, what does everybody else in Intergang get out of that? Or like, where's the government at all? Because they weren't the government, but the government just didn't seem to exist. Excuse me. Well, I don't know what sound that was, but just like a huge
shock.
But at my own words. But that is definitely a movie killer for sure. Like, like I get what your goal is, I guess, but it's not fleshed out. So like a non-fleshed out motive is more annoying than anything. And number 1, Frank, is darkness. When you can't see what the heck is going on. This is absolutely this absolutely does ruin a movie.
Yes.
Normalize and bring back filming during the day and putting a blue tint on the screen.
Well, I don't know, but I wouldn't go that far.
Do it. No, it's fine. I know it's supposed to be night. It's okay.
Shooting day for night is always that. I would put that above darkness.
No, absolutely not.
For me. Yes.
No, I can see everything. I don't care.
I know, but it looks terrible. I hate shooting day for night. It's terrible. I do agree though. Like criticism of Solo was that so much of it is visually too dark to decipher what's happening. I heard that criticism a lot. I think what this boils down to, honestly, is that these films are color corrected for theaters, and it does not necessarily translate to your TV at home.
Nope.
Even if you have an HDR TV and an HD DVD player, all that. I will say though that's starting to like. You mentioned The Last of Us earlier. That show looks fantastic, even in the dark.
It does.
Scenes that take place in the dark. It looks fantastic because I think it's actually shot and color corrected in a way that is more compatible with today's TVs.
Which is good because I mean, like, because there was you didn't watch Game of Thrones, but there's an episode of Game of Thrones that was like supposed to be like this like paramount huge battle, and you couldn't see 90% of it because it was so dark. And like I watched it on a good TV, 4K, good high streaming rates, like good HDMI cable, the whole thing. And I'm like, I had no idea what was happening. And like that was made for my TV, not for a theater. And so, my wife and I watched the Batman a couple weeks ago. She had never seen it, and like she was like, "It's good, but like I can't see half of what's happening." And I didn't even find that movie incredibly dark in comparison to a lot of other things. Like, like you can see pretty much everything, and so I don't know.
I think some people are more sensitive to it than others too. I think that like in the same way that shaky cam bothers somebody, it might not bother me. Like I think that things being in the dark and it being hard to see bothers someone the same way that you were talking about before. The dialogue being too quiet compared to the music, not being able to hear it really takes you out of it. Mm-hmm. Interesting that that's number one, though. I wouldn't have put it at number one, but it's interesting that it's.
Yeah, it might honestly it might be my number one. It not being able to hear and not being able to see, like those are the two things I really rely on for a movie. So if I'm watching a movie and I can't see anything,
the whole thing is being able to see it and hear it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So if those two things don't happen, like if those two things are not good, then the rest it doesn't matter what's happening in the rest of the movie.
No, that's absolutely true.
Yeah. So this is actually it's funny. Sometimes these lists they come out of nowhere or whatever, and you're like, I don't know how well this is going to go, but this was good, Frank. I enjoyed this very much.
This was good. I feel like if you had written this list, somewhere on the list would have been like bad costumes.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, bad costumes, definitely. I don't know if it would ruin it, but I would definitely notice it. Bad production design. Yeah. Actually, it's funny, like bad acting wasn't anything on here.
How was bad acting not on here?
Right. Like bad acting. I guess that maybe that falls into miscasting, but like
well, not really. They could be a good actor who is just not right for the role.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, bad acting. And truthfully, just a bad script. Like a bad like that can ruin a movie. Like pretty basic.
Exposition kind of
maybe
on that, but
but like just if the story isn't good, the story is king. Like every story is everything. If the story's not good, the rest of it doesn't matter.
Well, I think things we've learned today is that we like to see things, we like to hear things, and that Miles Teller should not be in any movies.
No, see, I guess I can't fully agree with that anymore, but I support your belief in being alive. I guess that's what I'm breaking down, what I'm putting down for you.
Okay.
Maybe it'll depend on the next thing I see him in. I might oscillate back and forth over here. But so far he's like, I don't like him in Whiplash, but I'm not really supposed to. But I like that movie quite a lot. And I liked him in The Offer, and I liked him in Maverick. And so he's kind of winning right now.
He's growing on you.
Yeah. Yeah, like a bad mold or something. But, he's still growing on me, so that's what's important.
Yeah.
Frank, where can the people find us?
You can find us at beerwithgeeks.com. You can find us in any podcast app that you like. You can rate and review us in that podcast app. Please do. You can subscribe to catch every episode. You can support us at patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio if you want to help us to fund the things that keep this show going. You can find our other shows at thoughtbubbleaudio.com. And you can email us with your feedback at beerwithgeeks@gmail.com.
Oh, that's very exciting. Thank you for saying that, Frank. Frank, I have something that is completely unrelated to everything that we talked about, but I want to see if you think it's real. I just got a text from my friend Bobby. It was written by AI, so never mind. It's the tag is James Gunn CAI. Somebody asked him who the villain will be, and he was like, "Great question. There are many villains in Superman Legacy, but the villain we most focus on is Brainiac. We believe that we can bring a level of terror never before seen in a Superman movie, much more than Zod or Lex Luthor. We want the focus to be on Brainiac to make Superman seem vulnerable for the first time, since people really feel that Brainiac is as powerful as Superman. I won't say how this plot ends, but you will definitely love it, says James Gunn AI.
That is ChatGPT's take on James Gunn.
Yeah, not bad, though. He's pretty polite, and ChatGPT definitely knew that Zod and Lex Luthor are overused. So,
right.
Yeah,
right.
So
right.
we learned a lot from. So
I wonder if ChatGPT could make Miles Teller likable.
Probably. I'm going to ask it right now. Don't go anywhere, Frank. Actually, you know what? This is a Patreon exclusive. You have to go to Patreon to find out. That's great. But anyway, Frank, it's great to see you as always. I'm actually doing it right now. Can you make Miles Teller likable? No. As a language model, I do not have the opinions or feelings, but I can provide information and observations about Miles Teller. Miles Teller is an American actor known for his roles in such films as Whiplash,
Okay,
The
I don't need to read me the
War
Wikipedia
Dogs.
article.
Some people might find him likable due to his acting ability and the characters he has portrayed on screen, while others might not find him as likable for a variety of personal reasons. Ultimately, whether or not someone finds Miles Teller likable is subjective and based on their own personal preferences and opinions. So, what this tells me is that ChatGPT is not exactly ready to take over the world and be our new overlord yet.
It's not really ready for the truth, is what you're saying.
No, it can't handle the truth right now. So, Frank, anyway, great to see you as always. So, until next time, cheers.
Cheers.